Well, I don't think it's particularly likely the Pac-12 gets a team into the college football playoff, but it's not impossible. And I think there are 4 schools that can do it.
You are Locked On Pac-12, your daily podcast on the Pac-12 Conference. It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On Pac-12. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your number one source to stay up to date with our media rights free as I record this show and beloved Conference of Champions. Like, comment, subscribe, rate, review, wherever you listen to or watch this show. Lots to get to today. College football playoff discussion. Is it a little bit early for that? Perhaps, but perhaps not. Because there's a big picture thing we have to discuss. And then the segment I've been looking forward to since February on this show. I'm going to predict Cal's record in 2023. Cannot wait. But USC is the betting favorite to win the Pac-12. They're the most likely team to reach the Pac-12 championship game, according to all the preseason metrics. And they're the most likely team to make the college football playoff. They have the greatest odds, according to ESPN's analytics, about 25%, somewhere in that range. So about 1 in 4 are the odds that they give the Trojans of reaching the college football playoff. Now, I do not plan to come on the show and predict a Pac-12 team to get there. It's too poetic, isn't it? It's too poetic for the Pac-12 to miss out on the opportunity in the final iteration of this conference as we know it, whatever it may end up being. It's too poetic for it to end with nobody making the playoff, for it to not happen. Like, isn't that justice? Isn't that the right way to do it? But I've been wrong before, and I will be wrong again. I just don't know where. That's kind of what makes this fun and exciting. So, USC, yes, they can make the playoff, but their defense isn't any good. Their defense is what will hold them back from winning a playoff game, as it has in the past, or winning the national championship. Lincoln Riley has shown time and time again that the teams that he coaches don't have to be prolific on defense. In fact, they can be bad on defense, and they can still win a conference championship and go to the playoff as a one-loss Power 5 champ. And history shows us, if you were a one-loss or undefeated Power 5 conference champion, you are going to get into the college football playoff. We'll see if the Pac-12 gets that this year, but USC certainly has a chance. But other schools do as well. And I talked about Utah earlier this week with JT Wistersill on the show, host of Locked On Utes. If you missed that episode, wherever you're listening to or watching this episode, go check it out, because we talked through Utah's entire schedule. And Utah, too, has a team, dependent on Cam Rising's health, of course, but if he's healthy for the entire season, I could see Utah going to the playoff. If Michael Penix stays healthy the whole season, I can see Washington going to the playoff. They weren't that far away a season ago. They bring back most of their important pieces. If Bo Nix stays healthy, I can see Oregon going to the playoff. They bring back a lot of important pieces. They have to work in a lot of newcomers, but a lot of those newcomers might be better than what they were a season ago. Those are the 4 teams that I look at and say, I see a viable path to the playoff. Now, my Oregon State everydayers out there are probably going to be flaming me in the chat at this very moment. I have said before, of the 6 quote-unquote contenders in the eyes of FanDuel Sportsbook and betting markets, I don't see UCLA as a legit conference contender. I think they're the weakest of the 6. I'm going to have them predicted with most likely the lowest win total of the 6 contenders going into this season. But Oregon State is a team that I do think can win the Pac-12. They are capable of doing so. But here's where I run into an obstacle with them, for me, when assessing, can they get into the playoff this year? A program that has undergone a slow and steady and methodical and effective and brilliantly orchestrated rebuild under Jonathan Smith has put together just one 10-win season. They did it a year ago. That's why they can win the Pac-12, because they bring back, most notably along the offensive line, and a newcomer in DJ Uiagalelei, a lot of returning talent from a team, but most importantly, really good coaching from last year's team. But when I look at Oregon State and just think philosophically about could they make the playoff this year? Number one, I don't know that that should be their expectations or even a goal this season. Down the line, sure. But this season, Oregon State is one of 3 teams to never play in the Pac-12 championship game. And just say this sort of thing out loud. A program that is undergoing a wildly successful and effective rebuild that hasn't played in a conference championship game. Does it feel like they're going to put it all together this year after one great season and suddenly make the college football playoff in the 4-team era? I think that's asking too much. I don't think Oregon State fans are expecting that, and I'm not expecting that. I think they should, and I am as well expecting them to contend for a conference championship, but a college football playoff spot, history would tell you got to have a little bit more momentum built up and a little bit more of a history with regards to winning at a high level, producing conference championship caliber teams before you can make a playoff run. Because remember, you have to be a one-loss or undefeated Power 5 champion. And Oregon State is in a prove-it year. Prove that you can be a contender year in and year out. Prove that you belong with the upper class of the pack. When you're in a prove-it year like that, even with DJ Uiagalelei upgrading their quarterback position, I don't see this as a team that's going to the playoff this year. So that's why I limit it to 4. Now, something else that those other 4 teams have in common, I do not believe that any of them are going to get there. But as I stated before, and as will continue to be the case, I've been wrong before. I'll be wrong again. My predictions are not 100% accurate. Nobody's predictions are 100% accurate. But there's one trait across all of those 4 teams. Well, there are 2 traits really that I see that make me think, okay, I can see them getting to the playoff. The first thing is pedigree of coaches and of the program. And when I look at Utah, I see a coach in Kyle Whittingham that has come within 1 game of getting to the playoff in 2019. So yeah, I can see it. I look at Oregon and I see a program that has been to the playoff. I look at Washington, I see a program that's been to the playoff. I see USC and I see a program that was a game away from the playoff last year in the Pac-12 title game. And I see a coach that has been to the playoff several times. Those are the sorts of indicators that I start out by saying, okay, yeah, I can see him getting to the playoff. Not just contending for a conference championship, but capable of making that next step. Because I've either seen it before or have really good reason to believe, based on past events, that it could happen. So that's the first thing. The second thing, though, and this does matter even in a loaded Pac-12, is each of those teams have a non-conference matchup and a conference schedule that's going to be enough in the eyes of the committee to me that if they are a one-loss conference champion and their only loss is in Pac-12 play, their resume is going to be viewed as legitimate enough to get them inside the top 4. And if you are 12-1, I don't see them putting in an 11-1 Notre Dame team over you. And I don't think Notre Dame goes 11-1 this year anyway. And I don't think there's a group of 5 team that can come in there and play spoiler. And yeah, you could have a situation in which Ohio State and Michigan are both 11-1 or 12-0 or something like that, right? Take what happened last year. Ohio State and Michigan are 11-0 going into the game. Michigan wins. Ohio State is 11-1. And Ohio State needed help because Ohio State was on the outside looking in until USC lost. And USC was 1 game away from being a 1-loss Power 5 conference champion in the Pac with a quality non-conference win over Notre Dame. So I look at the programs/coaches and I say, yeah, I can see those things coming together. And the teams that those rosters have assembled and those coaching staffs have put together. And I say, yeah, I can see that coming together. I've got star power at the quarterback position across the board. I've got other key playmakers that are going to help contribute for those teams. But also from a scheduling standpoint, you have the sort of non-conference matchup you need to get yourself there. USC has got Notre Dame. That'll do. Like my brother says when he hits a good golf shot. That'll do, donkey. That'll do. Call back to Shrek, of course. Amazing movies. USC's got Notre Dame. Washington's got Michigan State. That's a Power 5 opponent on the road. Even if the Spartans are just a bowl-eligible team this year, Washington will get some credit. Style points could end up mattering there. But that's enough. It's not a cupcake schedule like Michigan plays or that UCLA is forced to play because of Michigan pulling out of their home and home for the last couple of years. Oregon's got Texas Tech. That's enough. And Utah has got both Florida and Baylor. That's excessively enough. So those are the 4 programs that I see as capable of making the playoff because of the schedule and the makeup of their teams and their programs and where they are at right now. Drop your thoughts in the YouTube comments or hit me up on Twitter at smalls_55 or at LO_Pac-12. You're welcome to tell me I'm crazy, wrong, incorrect, misguided, all of the above. By all means. You won't hurt my feelings. Really, you won't. It's okay. We can disagree. Reasonable people can disagree. And I'm curious as to your thoughts on that. Are you curious as to my thoughts on Cal? I'm curious as to my thoughts on Cal, and I'm going to share them because, as everydayers know, they've kind of been my favorite team. You could join your favorite team through LinkedIn Jobs, though, whether you are a job seeker or a hirer. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. So go in there, create a free job post in minutes, add the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you are hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. I wonder if the College Football Playoff Committee uses this to evaluate candidates. It begs the question. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. As excited as I've ever been post second segment sip, I have been teasing this particular moment for so long here on the show because all off season I have been singing Cal's praises. A quick recap for those of you who are new here, welcome to the show by the way, as to why I have been bullish on Cal for a long time, and in my view, spoke into existence the win total of the Bears going from 4.5 to 5.5 on FanDuel. It's the only logical explanation, but anyway. They got a new offensive coordinator. They got a new offensive line coach. Those were both unquestionable weaknesses a year ago. They have a new quarterback. That was not particularly a strength. They have great offensive weapons. Are they top shelf in the pack? No. But are they above average compared to some other teams? Yes, absolutely. Jeremiah Hunter, that's a legit receiver right there. Jaden Ott, that's a big-time running back. And they've got several other pieces that you look at and say, yeah, okay, you got some weapons. You got to have the right philosophy. That's why they bring in Jake Spavital, who last time he was there as the offensive coordinator had a lot of success in Berkeley. A lot of success. So, that's the quick recap. And then a little bit more in depth there. Brett Johnson's back on the defensive line. You have Jackson Sermon back at linebacker for his 6th year of college football. Justin Wilcox has always got playmakers in the secondary. Plenty of reasons to feel optimistic here. So, let's go through the Bears' schedule. And I'm going to make a prediction game by game. And I'm sticking to my guns here. I'm going to stick to my guns across the board. I have said for a long time here on the show that I thought they would win their big non-conference game, which we'll get to in just a sec, and that they would beat one of the 6 so-called contenders. And as I look at the schedule, I'm going to be honest, guys, I don't know that they couldn't beat 2. I'm just saying they could beat 2. So, they begin with North Texas. They are 9.5-point road favorites in Denton. Why they are playing a road game against a G5 opponent is unclear, but this will be the first test of Sam Jackson at quarterback, most likely, is what we expect. Jake Spavital, the offensive coordinator, and what I expect to be a revamped California Golden Bears defense. So they're a 9.5-point favorite down there. Last I checked, I expect them to be able to go down and win that game. It'll just be by a matter of how much, but it'll give them an opportunity at the very least to work the kinks out. They should be able to get it done. So I think they win and start 1-0. And then they come home for one of the most random but exciting and thrilling contests in the Pac-12 non-conference slate going into this season, of which I am so excited for. Because I'm not going to say my reputation is on the line. I've been more wrong before, but my prediction will be on the line. Because like I said, I'm sticking to my guns here. I'm going with the California Golden Bears to upset the Auburn Tigers. That's right. I said it. I am predicting that to take place because I have seen no evidence to the contrary that causes me to move off how I felt when I looked at that game and realized that it was on the schedule much earlier in this calendar season. So I look at what Cal has done this offseason, and I am fully aware, by the way, I am fully aware of what exactly Auburn has done this offseason as well. Maybe not down to a T necessarily, but they have had a good offseason in the transfer portal. There is no doubt about it. Absolutely none. But so too have the California Golden Bears with a top 20 portal class. And by the way, just for all of you who think I'm crazy with my bullish feeling on the California Golden Bears, ESPN Analytics have Cal as the favorite. They don't have a point spread yet, but they are going to be favored in all likelihood to win that game against Auburn. And it wouldn't be the first time that a Justin Wilcox coach Cal team, who may not be set up for Pac-12 contention, went in the non-conference slate and beat an SEC team. They did it to Ole Miss down in Oxford, Mississippi, once upon a time. And I think they are going to do it right here. I'm taking Cal over Auburn, and I think Cal, as they have done so many times in the Justin Wilcox era, are going to get off to a hot start. Heck, could you see, hold on to your hats there, ladies and gentlemen, if Cal beats North Texas, as I expect them to, and then they beat Auburn, and then they take care of an FCS opponent in Idaho, could you see the California Golden Bears cracking, here it comes, the top 25? Oh, goodness. The blasphemy that I have the audacity to spew on this very program. Isn't it amazing? I'm not guaranteeing that. I'm just saying, you beat an SEC team, that carries a lot of weight. Even if you're at home, that carries weight. And here's what I can guarantee you. When they go on the road for their first conference game at Washington, if they pull an upset there, they will most certainly be ranked if they've already knocked off Auburn. Because if you start 4-0 and your wins are against Auburn and Washington, I don't care what year, what season it is, at that point in the year, you're going to be in the top 25. That said, I don't think they beat Washington. I think they will go into Seattle, and the Huskies will hold serve on their home court. Now, Cal played them extremely tough in Berkeley a year ago. It was a 28-21 final. So you translate that up to Seattle. Is this a better Cal team? Yes. But is that going to be enough to overcome the home field advantage? I think not. So I'm going to go with the Huskies to beat them, which they will be favored to do. And the Bears will drop their first game of the year, and they'll be 3-1. But then they come back home for 2 games in a row. Now, I legitimately went back and forth on these 2 individual games. The reason is because Cal has had a propensity to hang around or sometimes win games that they have no business hanging around in or winning. They have also had a propensity, Colorado last year, to lose games that they should not be losing. So when I look at the schedule and see at Washington and jot that down as a loss, and then I see that they come back home for 2 games in a row against Arizona State and Oregon State, I had this crazy thought. Could they suffer a failure to bounce back letdown against Arizona State only to have that revitalize them and energize them and have them playing with a sense of urgency, the likes of which they had not seen the 2 weeks prior, to beat a contender in Oregon State the following week? I can't rule it out. My sense is they split these games, Arizona State and Oregon State. And when I initially went through, I said, I think that's going to be an Arizona State win in a little bit of an upset. And then I think Oregon State can stumble on the road. Oregon State the last couple of years has been an outstanding team at home. They have been a much different team on the road. Remember last year, Oregon State in their 10-win season, their first since 2006. Do not forget. Do you remember what happened at the Farm last year? That was a 3-9, eventually, Stanford team. They were not good. They had Oregon State on the ropes. Because, simply put, Oregon State away from Reser Stadium the last 2 seasons has not been great. Inside of Reser Stadium, they've been nothing short of dominant and darn near unbeatable, save for one Bush push-esque shove of Caleb Williams on a 4th down on a cool, dark night in Corvallis last year. So that's why I pondered it. I eventually landed on Cal beat Arizona pretty handily a year ago in Berkeley. Arizona State this year, I don't think is as good as Arizona State was last year. And I think Cal is better. So I think they win that game. And bullish on Cal compared to how others might feel, though I may be, I am not going to take them to win that game against Oregon State. And I think it could set off a parade of losses here. And we have seen this again with Justin Wilcox coach Cal teams. They have demonstrated an ability on more than one occasion to get off to a hot start, 3-1, 4-1, 3-0, 4-0, something like that. And then they start to stumble, and then they start to falter. And I think this is going to be a season of streaks and runs for Cal because their schedule just sets up in the most brutal way possible. They have arguably the toughest conference schedule in the Pac. Utah is also up there for that. But Cal has to play all 6 contending teams. All 6 of them. Yeah. They can't miss USC. They can't miss UCLA. They couldn't miss Utah. No, they miss Arizona and Colorado from the South. Yikes. That's a tough break. Or else I would say their win total would, I think, legitimately be higher. It's sitting at 5.5, which is probably the right number. Because I think they're a 5-7 or 6-6 team. Don't worry, I'll give you a resolution on that in just a moment. But that is something that factors into how a win total is set, is what does your schedule look like? And Cal's is brutal. So I'm going to go with a win against Arizona State, a loss to Oregon State, but I think the Beavs have to be on watch for that game. And then they play 3 of the favorites, 3 of the highest ranked betting favorites at this point in the preseason in the Pac-12 in a row, 2 of them on the road. They go at Utah. That will be a loss. I'm not picking anyone to win at Rice-Eccles this year. Love Cal, though I apparently do. I am not picking them to win that game. They then come back home and play USC. Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley against Justin Wilcox and Sam Jackson. I like what Justin Wilcox has done this offseason. I think he can be a solid coach, but I'm not picking those 2 against Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley. So that's a loss. Then they go at Oregon, Dodson Stadium. That an easy place to play? Last time I checked, it definitely is not. And Dan Lanny's got a chip or 2 on his shoulder going into this season. So do the Ducks. So I think that is going to be 3 straight losses. Actually, 4 straight losses when you put Oregon State in there. And that's kind of why I hesitated. I'm like, look, I think the Bears can be a sneaky good team or a sneaky dangerous team for some people. Do I really think they're going to lose 5 consecutive games? And I do. Now, lose to Oregon State, Utah, USC, Oregon. Loss. Then comes Washington State. You are at home. At this point in the season, you will be sitting at 4-5. The Bears. Sounds about right. Now, this is a game that I legitimately view as a toss-up These are two teams, Cal and Washington State, that have defensive head coaches and need to get the most out of their quarterbacks. I think Washington State is probably a better team than Cal going into this year by just a little. It's why I think the Cougars are going to win that game, even though it's in Berkeley. But they are two teams who are separated by just one in their preseason win total. So could I see Cal winning that game? Yes, I absolutely could. I am picking the Cougars because I think Cam Ward at this point in time is a more proven commodity than what the Bears are going to get from Sam Jackson, which is probably their biggest question going into the year, is what can they get out of him? How developed can he be? He doesn't have a whole lot of experience, but he's got a lot of potential. What can they get out of him? That will likely determine how successful their season is. But it is not all doom and gloom for the Bears. I think they are going to have an L5, but I think it's going to end with a W2. I think you're going to have a hot start, a cold middle, and a strong finish. And it's 2 games on the road. Not ideal, but look at who you're playing on the road. If you just speak in the abstract and say, well, you got to play back-to-back road games to end the regular season, yeah, that's tough. Who are those games against? Stanford, and UCLA. Which of those road environments is absolutely positively terrifying? That would be neither of them. Absolutely, positively neither of them. So I think Cal is going to end with those 2 wins, and I think they are going to get to 6-6 and make a bowl game this year. And look, this is why I loved them over 4.5, because I go through this schedule and I see at least at bare minimum, I see 4 wins, but I think 5 is very attainable. I think it is extremely attainable. I'm predicting them to go 6-6. But here's the thing. Between Washington State and Oregon State, I believe in their ability to win both those games. I lean towards the other schools, but I'm not going to sit here. Both those games are at home. I'm not going to sit here and be shocked if one day I come back and I look at what has happened in those particular weeks and I see, oh, hey, wow, would you look at that? Cal beat Oregon State or Cal beat Washington State. Those teams were supposed to be better than them in the preseason polls, but they beat them. I could see it. I think Washington State is slightly more likely, but don't tell me that the Oregon State thing can't happen, because I think it can. Don't think it will, but it's possible. So I'm predicting Cal to get back to a bowl game this year. I will probably love them in whatever bowl game matchup they have, because I think they'll be much better than their 6-6 record will indicate, and that'll be a reflection of how tough their schedule was this year. I think they get back to a bowl game. All the moves they've made, coaching staff, personnel, and you factor in the urgency that Justin Wilcox probably has to coach with, you could very easily make the argument that if he doesn't make a bowl game, he might not be Cal's head coach anymore. 3 straight losing seasons, is that going to be acceptable? Probably not. Maybe they're okay with it. They did give him an extension, but I don't think it would be. And I think all those factors come together and Cal bands together as a team, and they've got enough talent, and Wilcox is a smart enough coach to get him back to a bowl game this year. I think 7-5 is more likely than 4-8 or 5-7. I really, really do. I'm going to land on 6-6 for the Bears. So there you have it. My long-awaited prediction of my new favorite team, the California Golden Bears. I have wanted to do that for so long. Now, real quick, what's needed for them to reach this benchmark and get back to a bowl game, upset one of the contenders, or maybe even 2? Could they surprise a Utah or an Oregon in a big way? I don't know. They almost surprised UCLA a year ago. I think Cal got better. I think UCLA is worse than they were last season, which is why I'm going to take Cal to win that game at the end of the regular season. Could they beat Oregon State? Yeah, I could see it. Could they beat Washington State? Yeah, I could see it. Could they also lose to Arizona State? Sure, they're Cal. That's what they've been known to do on more than one occasion, lest I go back to the loss to Colorado last year at one of the worst Power 5 teams we've ever seen. No reason Cal should have lost that game, but they did. They played down to their level of the level of their opponent. And sometimes teams do that. It's a hard thing to avoid. You're coaching kids, that can happen. But the questions that they have to answer: can the defense get back to what it has been in past years, which is top 4 or 5 in the Pac-12? And what do you have at quarterback with Sam Jackson? None of us know. I mean, I know he's dynamic. I know he's got a big arm, but that's about it. Can he do the little things? Can he execute? Can he make reads? Can he be precise? Can he protect the football? Can he get you into the right protections? We're going to find out this season. And the season's not that far away. And gosh almighty, am I excited. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. And until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.